Short and sweet, Introduction to Exponents. Some necessary vocabulary for this topic of study. Remember that an exponent is a raised number. So for example, if I have 3 to the second power, the 2 is the exponent. You've studied that for a while. The base is the number that carries the exponent. So again, if I use 3 to the second power, this time the 3 is the base number. Or if I use x to the 4th power, then x would be the base. We're also going to do some work with radicals in this unit. So the idea of a radical is this particular symbol. We tend to think of it as square root, but it works with any root, so the symbol itself is called a radical. When we put a number underneath it, for example this, the number underneath it is called the radicand. So that would be the radicand for that problem. If I do this, which is actually a cube root, but still with the radical symbol, and I do x to the 3rd power, then again the x to the 3rd power is the radicand. And finally, the idea of an index. So when I do this, the index is the number that sits in the radical. We can do this to many different ideas, different powers. So in this particular one, the 5 is the index. When we have a square root, we understand that the index, we generally don't write it, but we understand with square root that this would be a 2 for an index. Let's look at some examples of how these things work. So we have 3 to the 9th power. So I know here that 3 is my base. I know that 9 is my exponent. Here, the symbol, remember, is called the radical. 23 is the radicand. And because this is a square root problem, my index is 2. And for this final problem, I have an index of 3. I have an exponent of 4. I have a base of x, and then I have a radicand of x to the 4th. So that's an example of all the vocabulary words that I just went through with you. Now I'm going to let you practice a few of those. So in conclusion, there's some vocabulary that's very necessary for this particular topic of study. And so remembering the idea of exponent, which you've known for years. You've known the word base, but you may have forgotten it because we don't use it often. The idea of radical, which is the symbol. The idea of a radicand, which is the number that goes underneath. And the idea of the index, which tells us which root we want to take.